How to see more wildlife. One of the hallmarks of people who are deeply tuned with nature is that they see more wildlife. Maybe you've noticed that some people take walks in the forest and become convinced that there must be no animals there because, they never see any. But then other people might walk in that same forest and see, two deer, a fox here, a porcupine there, and 12 species of birds. So, what's going on here? Is it a conspiracy? And what are some things that you can do if you typically struggle with seeing wildlife? My personal experience is that it's usually not that there aren't any wildlife in the places that you visit, and it seems to have more to do with the difference between how people approach nature. People move through nature with different patterns of awareness. And if you emulate the awareness patterns of someone who sees a lot of wildlife, then you can do the same. So here, I want to give you some tips for how you can see more wildlife and just talk about some different things to try if you want to have more success and see more animals out in the forest. So the first thing to keep in mind with all of this is that the time of day can really have a huge impact on how likely you are to see animals. And typically, you have a much better chance of seeing wildlife in the first few hours of daylight or in the last few hours of daylight or even in the middle of the night. So, if you're always going out looking for deer or other wildlife in the middle of the day and not really seeing any, it might just be the time of day and you might have better luck by going early in the morning or late in the evening. And it's really just about trial and error and, something to be aware of. If you always go for walks at the same time of day, just switching the time of day could be all it takes for you to see more wildlife. Now, the second thing to keep in mind is your own level of awareness and the disturbance that you're causing by being in the forest. So you have to remember that you yourself have an impact on the animals. And the faster that you move through a landscape, the more noise you make and the less awareness you have. So if you're out there, making a lot of noise, you might be either scaring the animals away, or you might even be walking right by animals without even noticing because they're just being still and waiting for you to walk past. So actually slowing down your movement is one of the most important things to try out because it reduces your disturbance. The animals will become more comfortable with you, and you also become more tuned in with the subtle things happening around you. So you just focus more consciously on watching and listening and looking around. One of the best things that you can do to view more wildlife is just to find a spot where you can sit and be quiet and just watch, because then you really won't be causing any disturbance and you'll have a much greater ability to listen farther into the distance and spot the movement of animals. So the third thing that I'll mention here is just has to do with choosing the right location. You shouldn't get too hung up on this one because I think you'd be surprised by how many animals live in places that even at first glance might seem like they should be abandoned. But what I will say is that you'll tend to see a lot more wildlife at points of high ecosystemic diversity. So, this would be places on the landscape where you find the widest variety of plants and trees and insects. Those are also the same points where animals will be most concentrated. So a good way to find these places is to actually look for edge habitats, such as, along the edges of a forest where forest meets field, or where field meets water. Water edges are often the best places to see wildlife, especially in dry climates. So that might make a difference for you, especially if you're in a place that doesn't have a huge amount of ecological diversity. You might really benefit from looking for an edge habitat. Now, with all of this, the most important thing is to not get discouraged. Even if it seems like there are few wildlife in the places that you explore, there's almost always more than you realize. And it's really just about continuing to get outside, slowing down your movement, watching, looking, listening, switching up the time of day, and keep visiting the same places over and over again. If you follow those tips it really won't be long before the entire wilderness comes out to meet you, and you'll wonder how you ever missed it. So in the comments, tell me a story about a time when you saw a wild animal. Where did you see it? What kind of animal was it? What time of day did you see it? And if you want to learn more techniques for seeing and getting closer to wildlife, I created this series of videos where I will walk you through something called bird language, which is all about how to find wild animals by listening to bird alarms. And so I'll put a link in the description, and you can check that out if it seems like something you'd be interested in. And I will talk to you soon.